She saved a broken dog, but he was the one who healed her. The sky was overcast that afternoon in Maple Hollow, the kind of heavy gray that made everything feel slower, quieter. Rain had passed, but the garden behind Clara's house was still slick with puddles, and the tall weeds shimmered with droplets. She stood on her porch, staring out at the overgrowth, clutching a steaming mug of chamomile tea. The wild garden used to bloom with roses, herbs, and lavender. Now it was nothing but thistles and forgotten dreams. "I told you I'd help clean that mess up," came a voice behind her. Leo, her older brother by 5 years, stood barefoot in her hallway, rubbing sleep from his eyes. His graying beard was uneven, his flannel shirt buttoned wrong. A man still adjusting to living with someone after decades of solitude. Clara didn't answer right away. "I wasn't asking," she said gently, taking a sip. "Just needed air." Leo stepped onto the porch, squinting up at the gray sky. "It's gonna rain again," he muttered. "Everything's been damp since I got here. Even my socks feel sad." It made her smile. Just barely. They stood in silence, watching the garden, when Clara suddenly stiffened. A faint, sharp sound like a yelp or a whimper drifted through the air. "Did you hear that?" she asked, setting her mug down. Leo frowned, tilting his head. There it was again, whimpering, faint but real. They looked at each other, then followed the sound. It led them to the far end of the garden, where an old shed leans precariously among weeds. Clara's late husband, Harold, had used it for tools before the stroke took him 3 years ago. She hadn't stepped inside since. "Careful," she warned, as Leo pushed open the groaning wooden door. Inside, the light was dim. Dust floated like snowflakes in the stale air. Clara's breath caught as her eyes adjusted. There, in the corner, curled in a trembling heap of torn tarp and dry leaves, was a dog. It was medium-sized, its coat a patchy mess of mud, blood, and mats. One leg twisted unnaturally beneath its body. Its ribs jutted out from its sides, and its eyes, huge, brown, and terrified, locked on Clara's, as if begging silently. "Oh no," she whispered, stepping closer. "Looks like he's been through hell," Leo said softly. "You think he crawled in here during the storm?" Clara didn't answer. She knelt, slowly, careful not to startle the animal. The dog flinched, but didn't try to run. It probably couldn't. Its breathing was shallow, and there were dried cuts along its neck where a collar may have once been. No tags, no microchip, nothing. "We have to call animal control," she said after a moment. Leo's eyes snapped to hers. "You know what they'll do. He's too injured. He's suffering, Leo, and we can help." She stared at her brother. Leo, once a bitter, sarcastic man who'd barely visited her in the last decade, was now standing barefoot in her muddy shed, defending a dog they didn't know. "You want to take care of it?" she asked. "We don't have the money. You don't have a job. I'm on retirement checks." Leo moved forward and gently reached out a hand. The dog whimpered, but didn't pull away. "I don't know what I'm doing, Clara," he said, "but I do know if we leave him here, he dies. I can't walk away from that, not again." There was a heaviness in his voice she didn't question. They wrapped the dog in an old beach towel and carried him into the house. Clara cleared a corner of her laundry room and laid down pillows, old blankets, and a space heater. The dog didn't resist. He barely moved at all. "We can't keep calling him the dog," Leo said, as he gently set down a bowl of water nearby. Clara gave a small shake of her head. "Don't name him. We don't know if he'll survive." But the dog was watching her again. His eyes, still cloudy with pain, were wide and pleading. Leo ignored her protest. "He looks like Marley to me. You know, like that scruffy singer you liked." "Bob Marley had dreadlocks," Clara said flatly. "This guy has matted fur, close enough." She didn't argue. The name stuck. That night, Clara found herself hovering. She brought warm chicken broth in a saucer and sat beside the makeshift bed for nearly an hour, coaxing Marley to sip. He licked slowly, cautiously. Leo cleaned the dog's leg with warm water and gauze, and wrapped it with what he called a temporary splint made from chopsticks and medical tape. He needs a vet, Clara whispered when Leo stepped away. We're not doctors. I know, he said, but we can buy him time. In the quiet of the night, as the rain returned and tapped gently on the windows, Marley slept, curled into himself, legs twitching in dreams. Clara watched him from the doorway, arms folded. You're going to break our hearts, she whispered. I can feel it. But deep down, a tiny warmth flickered in her chest, a warmth she hadn't felt in years. The following days passed in a quiet rhythm that neither Clara nor Leo had expected. Mornings started with soft movements, Leo padding into the laundry room before the sun rose, checking Marley's leg, refreshing the water bowl, whispering, Hey, bud, still hanging in there? Sometimes Marley stirred, sometimes he didn't. Clara began cooking more than usual. Not real meals, not the kind Harold used to love. Just soft-boiled chicken, scrambled eggs, plain rice. Marley ate slowly, almost politely, but he ate. Every bite felt like a small victory. They didn't talk about it aloud, but both of them started structuring their day around the dog. Clara's daily reading, once reserved for quiet afternoons in her empty den, moved to the floor of the laundry room. She sat cross-legged beside Marley's bedding, with a book in her lap, reading aloud in a calm, steady voice. The sound seemed to soothe him. His breathing slowed, and once, he even let his head fall against her thigh while she read a chapter from Anne of Green Gables. That's a good sign, Leo said, standing in the doorway with 2 mugs of coffee. He's just cold, Clara muttered, brushing Marley's fur lightly, but she didn't move his head. Marley's wounds began to close. The gash near his hind leg was the slowest. But Leo had taken to changing the bandages like it was his job. He watched YouTube tutorials on wound care at night, scribbled notes in a little notebook, and applied warm compresses twice a day. Clara had never seen him so focused. You'd have made a good vet, she remarked once. Leo snorted. Can't even keep a marriage alive, but thanks. Clara looked at him for a moment. You're doing good now. He didn't reply, but he didn't look away either. One morning, Clara sat beside Marley with a brush in hand. He had started to wag his tail, a slow, effortful sweep whenever she came near. That morning, as she gently brushed out a clump of matted fur near his ear, he lifted his head and nudged her wrist. You like this? She murmured. You're just a spoiled thing now, aren't you? Leo peered around the corner, grinning. Told you he was a Molly. She rolled her eyes but didn't stop brushing. But healing wasn't linear. One night, a thunderstorm rolled in. The sky split with light, and thunder boomed like falling trees. Marley, who had been dozing peacefully, bolted upright and tried to run, his splinted leg catching on the blanket. He crashed into a laundry basket and whimpered in panic. Clara rushed in, startled. Marley crouched in the corner, eyes wide, trembling. He growled, not out of aggression but fear. It's okay, she whispered, kneeling slowly. It's just thunder, baby. Just thunder. She extended a hand, palm up. Marley hesitated, then crawled forward, head low, ears pinned back. Clara gathered him in her arms like a child. Leo found him like that half an hour later, curled together on the floor. Clara's head rested against the wall. Marley was asleep, half on her lap. Don't say a word, she warned softly, eyes still closed. Leo didn't. The next day, Clara made the call. I spoke to a rescue vet upstate, she told Leo over lunch. They do off-the-books consults. No paperwork, no shelter involvement. Leo put his fork down. And? She said she'd come down next week. It's not free, but not impossible. He raised an eyebrow. Are you okay with that? Clara nodded slowly. I don't know what we're doing, but I don't want to lose him. That week, Marley tried to stand on his own. It was clumsy. His legs wobbled and he collapsed more than once, but each time he pushed himself up again. Leo, standing nearby, offered a gentle hand under his chest. Take your time, buddy. By the weekend, Marley was walking, limping, yes, and slow, but walking. Clara couldn't stop watching. She brought her tea into the laundry room each morning and waited for him to rise, tail wagging at the sight of her. It had become their silent ritual. She'd sit on the floor and he'd rest his head on her knee while she whispered updates about the world outside. Which birds were at the feeder, which neighbor had painted their mailbox, how the lavender bush was trying to bloom again. The vet arrived on a drizzly Tuesday afternoon. Dr. Lynn was young, cheerful, and spoke in soft tones that even made Clara feel at ease. She spent nearly an hour examining Marley, checking joints, prodding muscles, assessing his gait. "Well?" Leo asked anxiously. Dr. Lynn stood. "He's healing, better than expected, honestly. Whoever's been caring for him has done a great job." Clara looked at Leo. He looked down, hiding his smile. "But," Dr. Lynn added, her expression sobering, "he's got old injuries too. Scarring near the ribs, healed fractures, a strange bump near the spine." "You found him in a shed?" Clara nodded. "He was just there, no tags, no chip, nothing." Dr. Lynn hesitated. "I've seen this before. These are signs of prolonged abuse. I think someone hurt him, repeatedly, then dumped him." The silence that followed was thick. Leo clenched his jaw. Clara reached for Marley's paw and held it gently. "Is he fixable?" Clara finally asked. Dr. Lynn smiled softly. "Not in the way you're thinking. But dogs are incredible. They don't dwell. He's safe now, and he knows it." That night, after Dr. Lynn had gone, Leo sat on the porch while Clara stared out the window at the sleeping dog. "He trusts us," she said. "Yeah, and he's not just healing, he's healing us." Leo chuckled. "Speak for yourself. I'm still a mess." Clara turned to him, something new in her eyes. Not blame, not bitterness, just understanding. "Me too. But maybe we don't have to stay that way." Marley shifted in his sleep, letting out a tiny, contented huff. Clara smiled. "Not bad for a garden stray," Leo said. "Not that at all."
The days that followed Dr. Lynn's visit unfolded like pages in a book. Clara wasn't ready to finish. Marley's strength returned slowly but surely. His limp grew less pronounced, and the light in his eyes no longer flickered with fear. There were moments now when he'd chase butterflies across the yard or bark at passing squirrels with his tail whipping in excitement. He was becoming, well, a dog. A happy, ordinary dog. And Clara's house, once echoing with silence, now pulsed with life. One afternoon, Clara sat on the porch swing while Marley dozed at her feet. She was clipping herbs, humming a tune she hadn't thought about in years, when Leo came around the corner holding an envelope. "This came for you," he said, handing it to her. Clara frowned. The return address was the County Animal Control Department. Leo had already seen her expression. "You don't think it's—" "They couldn't know," she said quickly, her voice tighter than intended. "We didn't chip him. We didn't do anything wrong." But something heavy settled in her stomach. She opened the envelope slowly, unfolding the enclosed letter with careful hands. "To whom it may concern. A dog matching the description of a male mixed breed with a healed leg injury and distinct scar markings has been identified in your region. This dog may be connected to an ongoing investigation of illegal dog fighting activities. If found, please report any information to the local Humane Task Force. Confidentiality will be maintained. Department of Animal Welfare, Rescue and Enforcement Division." Clara stared at the paper as if it might change if she blinked enough times, but it didn't. "I don't understand," she said, barely above a whisper. "Dog fighting?" Leo's jaw tightened. Those marks on his ribs, his fear during storms. He wasn't just abused. He was used, Clara whispered, and then dumped when he couldn't fight anymore. Marley stirred at her feet and laid his head on her shoe, sighing contentedly. The same dog who had once cowered in corners now looked up at her with soft, trusting eyes. "What do we do?" she asked, heart pounding. Leo sat beside her and didn't speak for a moment. "We have a choice," he finally said. "We can keep him and pray no one comes asking, or we call the rescue Dr. Lynn mentioned, the rehab sanctuary." Clara looked at him sharply. "You mean give him up?" "I mean give him a chance," Leo said, gently but firmly. "At a place where they know how to help dogs like him. Long-term, specialized, safe. But he is safe here with us. He's attached to us, yeah. But what happens if someone does come looking for him, or if his trauma gets worse? What if love isn't enough, Clara?" She felt something crack in her chest. Not because Leo was wrong, but because she had finally let herself believe Marley was theirs. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She sat beside Marley, stroking his ears, watching the slow rise and fall of his breath. Her thoughts ran in circles. Would Marley feel abandoned again if they let him go? Would he think they gave up on him? She whispered to him, voice trembling, "I don't want to lose you, but I don't want you to hurt anymore either." Marley opened one eye and blinked slowly, then nestled his head against her hand. And that was the moment she knew. They made the call the next morning. The woman from the sanctuary was named Theresa, and her voice was warm, calm, and full of understanding. "He'll be cared for," she said. "He'll be with dogs who've survived the same trauma. We have acres of land, on-site vets, behavioral specialists. Can we visit him?" Clara asked. "You can write letters. We'll send photos, updates, but no in-person visits, not for the first year. It's part of his recovery." Clara closed her eyes. "Okay, what do you need from us?" "Just bring him Saturday. We'll handle the rest." The week leading up to Saturday felt like walking through syrup, slow and heavy. Clara and Leo spoiled Marley in quiet ways. They cooked his favorite meals, gave him extra long walks through the trails behind their neighborhood, let him sleep at the foot of Clara's bed, where he snored softly like a purring cat. Every moment became a memory to cling to. On Friday night, Clara sat on the floor beside Marley with a box of old clothes. She pulled out Harold's faded flannel, the one he wore every autumn when raking leaves. She hadn't touched it in years. She wrapped it gently around Marley's shoulders like a blanket. "Your family," she whispered, "always." Saturday came, bright and painfully beautiful. The kind of crisp morning where every leaf looks sharper, every sound louder. Leo drove. Clara sat in the back with Marley's head in her lap. He wagged his tail weakly, sensing something was different. Theresa met them outside the sanctuary, a peaceful property surrounded by fields and wooden fences. She knelt to greet Marley, letting him sniff her hand. "Hey there, beautiful boy," she said softly. "You've got quite the story." Clara handed her the folder they'd prepared. Vet notes, feeding preferences, even a small journal Leo had kept of Marley's progress. Theresa took it all with care, and then it was time. Marley walked alongside Theresa, pausing once to look back. His eyes met Clara's. She forced a smile. "Go on, sweetheart. You're going to be okay." He tilted his head, then continued on. The silence on the ride home was different from all the others. It wasn't the silence of grief, not fully. It was the silence of letting go, of doing the hard thing because it was the right thing. When they got home, Clara walked into the laundry room and stood there. The blankets were gone. The food bowls washed and dried. The space felt impossibly still. Leo came up behind her and said quietly, "You gave him your heart." Clara nodded, and he gave it back. That night, as she curled into bed, Clara spotted something on her pillow, a small, wrinkled drawing, a pencil sketch of Marley, sleeping peacefully. Leo's handwriting underneath, "You saved him. And in case you forgot, he saved you too." Tears came, silent and soft, but this time, they weren't just for what was lost. They were also for what was found. 3 weeks passed. The house was quiet again, not heavy with grief like after Harold's passing, but quieter in a different way. Clara still woke early, half expecting the soft shuffle of paws or the thump of a tail against the hallway floor. But instead, there was only the creak of old floorboards and the gentle hum of the heater. She kept Marley's bowl on the shelf above the laundry room sink, washed, dried, waiting. Leo filled his time with small projects. He fixed the broken porch step, organized the garage, even built a new bookshelf for Clara's reading room. But his movements were slower now, thoughtful, as if waiting for a reason to get back up again. Clara spent her afternoons in the garden. With the weeds finally cleared, she planted the same lavender her husband had loved. In the center, she placed a small wooden sign Leo carved by hand. "For Marley, you bloomed where you were planted." They hadn't heard from the sanctuary yet, and part of her worried. What if Marley hadn't adjusted? What if he thought they'd abandoned him? But the update came on a rainy Thursday morning, tucked between bills and catalogues. It was a letter, printed on thick paper, with the sanctuary's logo at the top. "Dear Clara and Leo, we wanted to share an update on Marley, who has quickly become a favorite here at the sanctuary. His injuries have continued to heal, and his limp is improving thanks to supervised play and water therapy. Emotionally, he's made tremendous progress. Marley has bonded with another rescued dog named Nellie, a quiet golden retriever mix who came to us under similar circumstances. They eat together, nap together, and just last week, they curled up by the staff cabin fireplace for hours. He is safe. He is happy. He carries your love like a shield. Enclosed is a photo we thought might make you smile. With gratitude to the sanctuary team. Clara unfolded the photo slowly. In it, Marley was lying in the grass, belly up, his flannel scarf still knotted around his neck. Beside him was a golden dog, head resting on his shoulder. They looked peaceful, whole. She pressed the picture to her chest and closed her eyes. For the first time in weeks, she let herself cry. But this time, the tears were warm, healing. Later that day, she placed the photo in a frame near the fireplace. When Leo saw it, he paused. "He looks good," he said softly. Clara nodded. "He looks loved." Leo rubbed his neck. "You ever think about doing something more permanent?" She looked at him. "Like what?" "I mean, there's a whole town of stray dogs, shelters packed to the ceiling, people needing help to care for rescues. What if we helped?" "You want to foster?" she said, almost surprised. He shrugged. "Not full-time. Maybe build stuff, like kennels, beds, ramps. You could do reading visits, like you did for Marley." Clara tilted her head. "You sure about that?" Leo looked at the framed photo again. "I've never been more sure." And so they did. It started with one visit to the Maple Hollow shelter, then 2, then 3. Within a month, Leo had built 4 raised dog beds, painted the kennel walls cheerful colors, and fixed a broken gate the staff had been ignoring for years. Clara volunteered on reading days, sitting in a sunny corner with rescued dogs curled beside her as she read Charlotte's Web, The Secret Garden, The Velveteen Rabbit. The dogs didn't understand the words, but they understood the voice, the presence, the love. They began hosting Sunday story and snacks events in their backyard garden, open to neighbors, children, and rescue dogs alike. Kids sat on picnic blankets and listened to Clara read aloud, while Leo grilled hot dogs and handed out lemonade. Marley's garden bloomed in the background, a space that once symbolized loss, now glowing with life. The neighborhood noticed. People who'd once passed Clara's house without a second glance now stopped to talk. They brought their own dogs, asked questions, donated supplies, and slowly a community formed, bound not just by animals, but by shared compassion. On the 1-year anniversary of Marley's rescue, Clara and Leo held a small gathering. They invited everyone from the shelter, the sanctuary staff, and even Teresa, who surprised them by driving 4 hours just to attend. She brought a new photo, this time of Marley and Nellie lying side by side, both wearing scarves knitted by sanctuary volunteers. "He's a guardian now," Teresa said. "When new dogs come in afraid or injured, he's the first to greet them. It's like he remembers." Clara's eyes misted. He always remembered, but he also knew when to let it go. Leo raised a toast with lemonade. "To Marley," he said, voice thick with feeling, "our miracle mutt." The crowd echoed it, "To Marley." That night, Clara and Leo sat on the porch swing again, just like they had all those months ago. Fireflies danced in the dark garden. The stars blinked down through soft clouds. "You ever miss him?" Leo asked. "Every day," Clara said. "Me too." She looked out at the yard, at the lavender blooming, at the laughter fading from the garden gate, at the dog beds tucked under string lights. "But he gave us something," she said quietly. "He reminded us that broken things can heal. That love finds you when you least expect it." Leo smiled. "And that even a muddy, half-dead dog can change your life." They laughed, and in the silence that followed, they didn't feel empty. They felt full. A year later, a child visiting the rescue center asked Clara why there was a wooden sign in the middle of the garden. "Because," she said, kneeling beside the little girl, "it belongs to the dog who planted love here." She smiled, and it never stopped growing.